Okay, folks, it is time for the 2025 Game and Network Services Business Segment Briefing. This is a very important time for the PlayStation business. This shows up typically every year, and a lot of you might remember from previous LTPS episodes or other opinion pieces where we refer to these slides in previous years quite often because they can be very insightful with what's going on in the PlayStation business, Sony's trajectory for the business, what they're planning on doing, things like that. So we could see some really important things be revealed during this this little briefing, which has just gone live. So since LTPS this week is going to be very packed, I thought we just do these two things separately. So when you're watching this, LTPS will be live and we'll be doing more of a reaction to this material that just got put up. So with that in mind, let's see what Hideaki Nishino and Herman Hulst have in store for us with what's going on in the PlayStation business.
Hi, I'm Hideaki Nishino, President and CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment and a CEO of the platform business.
Yeah.
And hello, I'm Herman Hulst, CEO of the studio business.
The PlayStation brand is universally celebrated by both players and creators for the unique experiences we create.
World-class franchises, rich narrative experiences, single player, growing live services capabilities, on console and beyond. This is all very the last 3-4 years basically. So they're still on the same path.
The PlayStation console is the gateway to a lifetime of player engagement and value.
These are a lot of the same slides that they've done annually, because they're always tracking things like this. You know, MAUs are going up, annual gameplay hours are going up, and these are the kind of things that they really care about nowadays, is just seeing how much time you're spending on PlayStation. So we can see MAU starting to favor PS5 more and more as more people are slowly transitioning over, because we're still, you know, a little bit more than halfway over the life cycle now. Life-to-date spend, so $669. PS5, it's $846. Things are generally more expensive, obviously, but content seeing a pretty big increase. Everything is, actually.
The PlayStation 4 remains an important access point for existing players to experience our content and services, and we remain committed to serving them.
We remain committed to serving them. PS4. I think that's a nice little thing to call out there. I think that's just them saying that we're going to maintain PlayStation Network on PS4 for the foreseeable future. Technically, they're still doing that for PlayStation 3 and Vita. Barely. So like a skeleton crew.
Provide a consistent and a predictable base of revenue, and now represent over 2/3 of total revenue.
So content, gosh, it's the PlayStation Store still just such a massive amount of money for them now.
The store business has a balanced portfolio of content with diverse characteristics.
So this is a very similar slide too, and it's the one that's like the most, depending on who you ask, but it's like alarming. You know, it's basically an even split. So actually, FY 2022, they're back down to the same percentage here. But this bottom portion keeps increasing as far as the sheer quantity of games. What you're looking at is literally a nearly down the middle split of these black hole games. Your Roblox, Call of Duty, you know, the yearly NBA games, GTA 5, and that's going to have 6 joining in there soon, Genshin Impact. These live service games account for half the revenue, just slightly more than half. And then everything else is these a la carte games, which from fiscal year 22 is 8,000. Now we're up to more than 12,000 games, and they're just not making a dent in this sort of fight against the black hole titles. All right, let's look at this PlayStation Plus slide here. So 38% subscribe to PS Plus Premium or Extra. These services have seen a recent price increase, and you are still seeing, since the relaunch, a more sticky adoption rate. So people are still, generally speaking, subscribing to Extra and Premium more than they were from fiscal year 2022. It's kind of what I was getting at before. You know, we can always complain about how expensive it gets, but at the end of the day, nothing is going to change if this doesn't start going backwards. And it's not. Actually, Extra has stayed stagnant. It seems like Premium's getting a little bit more sticky at 22%.
Subscribers are increasingly choosing our Premium and Extra tiers which now represent approximately 38% of total subscribers. I will now pass it to Herman to discuss the studio business.
All right.
Thank you, Nishina-san. PlayStation Studios is a global network of exceptional teams across North America, Europe, and Japan.
All right, so this is the typical slide that we got from before, but now it's updated. So single player, we have Insomniac, Housemarque, Team Asobi, Naughty Dog, Sucker Punch, Santa Monica Studio, and Fire Sprite firmly in the single player camp. Live service would be your San Diego for MLB. Haven still around. Team LFG getting a formal reveal. Bungie. Dark Outlaw Games is under evolving multi-genre. That's interesting. So, I mean, Dark Outlaw, which is Jason Blundell's team, we're still not entirely certain as to what that game may or may not be. But the evolving multi-genre is also accompanied by Media Molecule, which made sense. Polyphony also, I guess, makes sense. I mean, it's still very much a sort of isolated experience, I think, for a lot of players with the Gran Turismo franchise. But it's also like, if they stuck it over here, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense too. You know, Gran Turismo, that's kind of what it is nowadays for the most part, but they don't consider it fully planted under live service. Bend just had their game canceled. So, I mean, what could we really say? It's going to be so far until we see whatever they end up putting out. If they do end up eventually going through with their next game, and Guerrilla, that makes sense too, with this Horizon multiplayer project, still doing single player, so that adds up there. Bluepoint also with this canceled God of War live service game. That's just the most puzzling, bizarre thing out of the entire live service shakeup, but, you know, it really depends on what they end up doing too. Not even sure if Bluepoint or Bend have anything really locked down just yet, considering how close it was, or how recent it was from their cancellations. Code development, Nixus and Valkyrie, yep. XDev, Kojima, Arrowhead, and ongoing partnerships with additional studios. That's what's always so exciting about XDev. There's so much here that we may or may not know about, or rumors that we've heard about, and things that they've signed with, say, People Can Fly, and that's also super far away. But I don't know. I mean, I guess the thing that does definitely stick out to me is Dark Outlaw Games, so that might be the most pertinent new item in here.
Ghost of Yotei and Death Stranding 2 on the Beach in fiscal year 25, and future releases of Intergalactic: The Erratic Prophet and Marvel's Wolverine. And one of our most...
Okay, so before that, they did not put a fiscal year on either of these games. So, I guess that's kind of important to note. But anyway, let's talk about how lovely Astrobot is. What are you going to say about Astrobot, Herman?
Our most anticipated upcoming titles. Released last fall and created by Team Asobi, Astrobot was a smash hit, achieving universal acclaim among players and critics and sweeping industry award shows. We also remain committed to building a diverse and resilient portfolio of live service titles.
Okay, so it's a pretty damning slide, though, when you compare it to the one from, was that the business segment briefing from 2022? But it was the crazy one where it was like 12 live service by fiscal year 26 or something. And oh, how the mighty have fallen. We are looking at now Destiny 2, Helldivers, Marathon, fiscal year 25, and upcoming Fair Games, which who knows if that game will even still end up actually releasing. It's the same story I keep giving with live service. I think it's better to cancel all these games instead of put them out, and they also do terrible. Obviously, the rollout's been extremely poor and troubling and ugly, but I think it was the worst option.
We're also very excited for...
Like I said, so 3.6 million MAU. I think that's a new number for us, saying the majority is on PC. I think the initial, early numbers we were getting was 60-40, where 60% was on PC, but still, this is a very big number. It's always important to, not lose sight of Helldivers 2 being incredibly successful. But Marathon's strong early engagement for Bungie's bold and innovative new title. I don't know if they're just playing a little bit fast and loose with that, but it's not exactly the language that was coming out of that recent alpha.
We have a long and proud history of not only creating iconic games, but also growing these into iconic game franchises with enduring fan bases. We will do so by continuing to deliver incredible experiences in single-player and live services, while also expanding our franchises beyond the console and beyond gaming. All while maintaining the operational and financial discipline and future-facing investment mindset required to drive sustainable profit and long-term growth.
All right, let's just zero in on that language right there. Continued financial discipline to drive operating leverage while investing in IP, operations, publishing, and technology. When they say financial discipline, that is exactly what I was getting at before with all the cancellations. You have to have that discipline of saying no to things and moving on to something else. Yeah, that is what they've generally been pretty good at. It's not like they've had knockout success after knockout success, but oftentimes you might want to go down that. It's the Cerny method. It's the Mark Cerny method. For those that have watched that original 2004 DICE conversation, it's knowing when to kill a project, but I feel like they're going to be a lot more stringent with this, as they have been with the live service stuff. They keep saying, we've got a solid foundation, build foundation and strength and capabilities. I mean, gosh, they're going to keep throwing around this Helldivers 2 logo until they, God forbid, have something else to throw alongside it. And right now, Marathon's kind of playing that role, despite it kind of, I don't think, really earning that spot next to Helldivers 2, certainly not now. Maybe Marvel Tokon can do that once it ends up coming out, but this is really the sticking point right now, Single player and creative leadership and consistent delivery. Man, sounds about right. Just the problem with single player is that these games take so goddamn long to make, That's why I think you axe this stuff, it's not really going to change this sort of perceived problem PlayStation has with their single player drought. You're still going to take 7-8 years to make a single player game, and that's assuming everything goes smoothly. If they are looking to continue making big AAA, cinematic experiences, those games just take so long. Which is why I want them to be bolstered by XDev and maybe some smaller projects like that 2.5D God of War game that we're hearing about. So that I would love to see more of. But otherwise, these two things are pretty much par for the course.
We are continuing to bring major PlayStation Studios franchises to PC. We are also investing thoughtfully in key technology areas, including cloud and artificial intelligence, to enhance player and creator experiences, and to drive further enterprise-wide efficiencies.
Enterprise-wide efficiencies. That's the language that you see them skirt past, but that is the real telling thing for AI. I mean, they're going to use all this very gray language, proactive utilization, drive efficiencies, enhance player and creator experiences. Enterprise is internally for our own bottom line. So don't love hearing that, but Sony's a public company. Of course, they're going to be looking into that. Otherwise, yep for all three of those other portions.
And we will continue to inspire our players and creators, pushing the boundaries of play with imagination. This concludes our presentation.
Nothing that super interesting, I would say. Dark Outlaw games being categorized under evolving multi-genre is perhaps the most noteworthy thing out of there. Now, we do also have the Fireside Chat video, and this will be interesting too. Let's see if we get anything out of here.
With cloud gaming more of a viable option than ever before, do we need a next-generation console? Is SIE developing one?
It's a great question. We have been in cloud gaming for over the last 11 years. We deployed cloud gaming servers to support the PS3, PS4, and the PS5 generations, and then we are really proud about the quality we have been delivering. Cloud gaming is increasingly providing an additional option for players to access content, but our belief is that the majority of players continue to want to experience the gaming through a local execution without dependency on network conditions. And PS5 and PS5 Pro have validated these thesis, I believe. While we cannot share further details at this stage, the future of the platform is top of mind. We are committed to exploring a new and enhanced way for players to engage with our content and services.
Oh my god. So that, I mean, they didn't say anything about PlayStation 6, but he's outright saying cloud is not necessarily what we can lean on right now. which I think everybody agrees with, right? So that's more or less SIE kind of acknowledging in this context where it's so controlled. These are all, everyone here works at SIE. This is all a very controlled environment, a very controlled conversation and interview. This is the kind of information they want to telegraph to not just investors, but also the very obvious headlines that are going to show up Friday morning when everyone starts to watch this and catch wind of it. Very controlled messaging of cloud is a part of the current business, but it's not going to be the answer for what is going to be going into the next generation of hardware.
Many investors are speculating that Microsoft is moving away from the console. If that's true, is that good or bad for PlayStation?
So we think that competition in the business is healthy and then pushes us to innovate. There are multiple participants who together drive the overall game industry. And while there are new engagement models being explored, we ultimately think this is a good thing. However, as I mentioned earlier, we are confident and committed on our current strategy. And there isn't an urgent need for us to pivot, but we will continue to monitor play patterns and invest appropriately as required.
Wow, that's them just outright saying like, yeah, we like competition. We're not going to do what they're doing. That is PlayStation fully committing to the traditional console model. Wow, what hell of an answer. Hell of an answer. I had no doubt Microsoft very much is carving out a different path that is likely a lot more software focused and perhaps partnering with third-party manufacturers. I think the ROG Ally Xbox, I hate the name of that thing, but that is quite telling, right? For the direction they're going. And this rumor that they've sort of sidelined or canceled their own in-house Xbox Portable in favor of just focusing on a Windows hybrid approach, launching into a highly sort of dressed up Xbox UI, which can then access the Steam storefront. This is PlayStation basically saying, yeah, that's great for them and they can go explore that, but we're not doing that.
You raised the price of the PlayStation Plus in the past. What was the rationale for the price increase, and what might cause you to raise price in the future? Music and video streaming services are raising price consistently. How frequently can you raise the price of the PlayStation Plus?
Yeah, so PlayStation Plus is highly valued by our players and then continues to drive engagement. We're already seeing a trend toward adoption of higher tiers within our service, as evidenced by the subscriber mix we achieved in fiscal 24. These price increases were partly a result of the increasing value we bring to the players. So the quality and the diversity of content we continue to add, as well as investment in the features to improve the service further, such as player personalization and enhanced content discovery.
Yeah, that was a fluff answer. They're not really providing much more new value at all. Arguably, maybe for like the PlayStation Portal with cloud streaming, but I think it's pretty obvious what they've done lately with the Plus price increases. I mean, especially given that we analyze every year, and we should be doing that fairly soon for what is now going to be the third year since the PS Plus relaunch, but you can sort of track a very noticeable decline as far as the amount of times, the amount of games that they're adding to Plus for Extra and Premium, so the higher tiers, as he's alluding to, which more people are quite sticky to those services, and more people are still subscribing in face of the price increases. But less games, generally, they're still fine. They are leaning more towards some of these first-party, or rather day-and-date launches, I should clarify. We have had a few of those as of late, but you're just not seeing that many games get added to the service anymore, and that's kind of been the word around GDC, for example, is that the subscription deals are kind of drying up, and they're not nearly as lucrative as they once were. That goes to Plus and Game Pass, for example. Both of these are shooting up in cost, and we know studios aren't really getting paid a ton, and players are paying more for them, so can't say I agree with what is very much an answer that's trying to save face.
On the PlayStation Portal, and are handhelds a part of your next generation strategy?
God.
Yeah, the PlayStation Portal is part of our strategy to offer more flexible playstyles. When we invested in the PlayStation Portal, we wanted to ensure that any handheld device we create would be able to provide players with the full PlayStation experience. Currently, the Portal owners spend 30% more time playing, and then later into the evening. So we remain committed to exploring new ways for players to access our content and services.
Okay, so he didn't really say anything, but man, that is so interesting. I mean, this is their interview environment. They included that question about a portable PlayStation beyond the Portal. Wow, they're just outright acknowledging like a lot of things right now. This is fascinating to say the least. They're still not outright saying it, but you know, the context here very much is like, oh, we're looking into it for sure. And to be honest, I think it is pretty much full steam ahead.
How committed are you to live game services? Are you going to invest as much capital into live game services as you originally planned?
Yeah, we remain very committed to building a diverse and a resilient live service portfolio. I mean, we have MLB The Show, Destiny 2, Helldivers 2, and these are all really good examples of the type of titles that we're looking to develop. We're also very excited about Marathon's anticipated launch in this fiscal year.
Okay, so that doesn't surprise me. They're still committed. They're still going to do live service. It's not like they're walking away from it. I'm sure people are going to have a field day with that answer. Here's my thing. It's going to be very telling how they navigate it on the other side of this. And when I say the other side, I mean they're already walking away from what was a ton of cancellations. You know what I mean? And that's, again, the same point of that's the best, worst scenario. Cancel them before you make them. They all fail. Studio closures and this, that, and the fourth. Will they... I want to see how they'll learn from that approach, which is being even more careful as they try to navigate this space, which is maybe instead of greenlighting 12 games, you greenlight 3 or 4 at a time, have much more balanced checks in place to make sure that one game doesn't progress too far to where you have a Last of Us Online, or what Haven's going through, or having Concord go all the way through and it comes out and it completely fails. You know, don't greenlight as many projects, have a lot more checks in place, and also do early access. This is something SIE doesn't normally do, but I think if you're going to create multiplayer experiences that live and die by the community, then you have to start having a very open, honest, earnest feedback loop with your player base. That's what I hope they will do going into this sort of second wave of live service games that, as Herman just said, they're still very committed to. That's what I'll say.
What have you learned from your foray into live game services, including Concord? And how does this relate to Marathon and the recent alpha test?
Yeah. So live service, we really see that as a great opportunity for us. But with this great opportunity are some unique challenges associated. So we talked about it, some early success, as with Helldivers 2. We've also faced some challenges, as with the release of Concord. I think there's some really good work actually went into that title, some really big effort. But ultimately, that title entered into a hyper-competitive segment of the market. I think it was insufficiently differentiated to be able to resonate with players. And so we have reviewed our processes in the light of this to deeply understand how and why the title failed to meet expectations, and to ensure that we're not going to make those same mistakes again. As I said earlier, we've introduced much more rigorous processes for validating, for revalidating our creative, our commercial, our development assumptions and hypotheses, and we now do that on a much more ongoing basis. And that's the plan that will ensure that we're investing in the right opportunities at the right time, all while maintaining much more predictable timelines. It's just so valuable to iterate and to constantly improve the title. So when launch comes, we're going to give the title the optimal chance of success. And this cycle of test, of iterate, test again, that is such a key component of the live service success, both leading up to launch, but also throughout the life of the game.
I love how, like, first off, he's saying everything I just said. So I hope they are indeed actually doing that so we can avoid another Concord. And they already say constantly that they're still doing single player games. So I'm not going to argue with the audience about this. But what's so funny is that there's very clearly like a teleprompter like in this direction over here, but he's sitting there. So like they're almost always like just, it's so obvious as to where they're reading from as they're doing this interview.
Some investors, to be quite honest, are concerned that the improved specifications of the Switch 2 and Nintendo's improved relationships with third-party publishers will lead to tougher competition for PlayStation in the next few years. What do you think about those concerns?
Yeah, so we closely monitor the kind of overall gaming industry, including the action of other market participants. As I mentioned previously, we have a differentiated strategy. So PlayStation 5 is designed for an immersive gaming experience. We believe PS5 level performance is required to achieve a great experience on big screens.
Dude, this interview is crazy. It's so weird. It's like they're bundling together all these like elephants in the room and criticism of the PlayStation business for the last, gosh, I would say the entirety of the PlayStation 5 cycle, and just wrapping it up into this like very like buttoned up PR answer acknowledgement. very, like, their PR answers in the grand scheme. Like, a lot of this stuff is still kind of fluff at the end of the day as far as what they're saying. You could go back to an interview from 1 or 2 years ago and probably find an answer that was very similar to what they're giving for their commitment to console, single player, how they feel about the marketplace right now, where's the family-oriented games, oh, we have Astrobot. I mean, it's all still very formulaic, but it's fascinating how they're wrapping it up together like this in this fireside chat, and going out of their way too to like name the Nintendo Switch 2. They very rarely like say other platforms out loud in this kind of environment. So that's also just kind of a very rare thing to see SIE even do nowadays.
To turn to financials and KPIs. So Nishino-san and Herman, what KPIs are you focusing on for each part of your businesses?
We're focused on consistently delivering at least one tentpole title per year, the right time in the year, at the right quality level, which have players come to expect from PlayStation Studios. In live services, we're focused on building a recurring base of enduring live service titles that drive ongoing engagement and monetization as achieved by our releases to date. And then finally, we'll continue to grow our franchises through a very thoughtful release cadence and as transmedia properties.
One major tentpole release per year. That's the cadence right now. You know, it sucks, but like I don't know how you speed that up any further outside of like being a Microsoft. You know what I mean? Like that's just what's so frustrating about it. Like I'm with everybody as far as like, man, where are all these single player games? Where's the big PlayStation Studio titles? You know, there's no getting around how long it takes to make games nowadays. So that does stand out, where that's the sort of expected release cadence. One major tentpole game per year. That's sort of what it has come down to. It's not like the PlayStation 3 cycle anymore, where you can have a Naughty Dog do 3 Uncharted and a Last of Us all within the same cycle. And arguably, nobody likes hearing this, but pretty much nobody can do that nowadays. Look at all other publishers. Look at all other studios. Nobody is really doing that nowadays. Even Nintendo, which they do tend to get a lot of credit for how often they have a release cadence, how many like Nintendo first-party games come out. But, you know, it's not hard to sort of boil it down to, oh, we had Mario Odyssey in 2017 and there's still not another one. Or there's a pretty big gap between Tears of the Kingdom and, or rather Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. It's everybody's kind of facing that nowadays, and that's it's bogus.
Thank you very much. Thank all of you for your participation today, and thank you all for joining us.
I don't know if that's that. I think that would not really instill confidence in the direction of the company in the way that I think anybody watching this video would want to hear, if that makes sense. There's nothing in there that really concerns me per se, because these are all pretty much, it's still the roadmap that we've kind of had for PlayStation as far as the business, the off-console approach and thoughtfully navigating that, still committing to live service, still committing to single player. I know this is already going to be something where headlines tomorrow are going to be heavily centered around the live service commitment. We're still doing it. We're still going to be investing there. But, you know, they've been saying continuously for the past 5 years since PlayStation 5 launched that it's still a key pillar of the business. So there's nothing in here that's super concerning to me at all. If anything, you can absolutely sort of spend more time, you know, realizing that the company went out of their way to acknowledge, you know, the Switch 2 and that platform's place in the business, what Microsoft is doing with their next-gen hardware or the ROG Ally and the software-focused approach, and how that's not something that they want to explore, and they're still very committed to the traditional console model and their experiences on the console. So, I mean, they're still, for the most part, I would say fairly conservative. You know, they've still gone out of their way to say, like, we're committed to console and single player. Cloud is a part of the business, but it won't be the primary way to access games. They're still in a very strong spot, right? Like, there's nothing problematic about what they said. I think if you're a fan, though, and you're looking forward to what you've always loved about PlayStation, you're still probably going to see kind of what we have been seeing during this cycle, which is it takes a long time for those single-player games to come out, and you are going to be seeing PlayStation exploring certain things that, you know, in previous console generations they weren't doing, and that's like licensing out their games or, you know, investing more in cloud and all that stuff. So, you know, it was a really interesting Q&A, though, especially given that it is such a controlled thing, and they really wanted to do these things on their terms and give out PR answers, sure, but it was still something that they felt the need to acknowledge and talk about in the here and now, not just to investors, but they are fully aware of the fact that somebody like me will be watching this and other game sites will be watching this, and they are going to rip headlines out of this, and they know that their consumers are going to hear about these things. So that is also, I think, quite noteworthy as well. Anyway, that's the two videos they put out for the business segment briefing, and I hope you enjoyed this sort of new type of reaction that we don't typically do. But the state of PlayStation is kind of still going in the direction it's been going, and depending on who you ask, that may or may not be a good thing. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in my next video. You take it easy.